and that's vehicles. Construction and insurance costs have increased dramatically over the past several years, and our city revenues have not kept pace with those rising costs. As we face some difficult budget decisions, we want Sandiegans to know that we're listening. We will continue to prioritize public safety and protecting our neighborhoods, and work to create a more efficient and effective city government.
All right, good afternoon. I will now reconvene the City Council meeting of Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Council President. Councilmember Campbell?
Here.
Councilmember Whitburn?
Here.
Councilmember Foster? Councilmember Von Wilpert? Council President Pro Tem Lee?
Here.
Councilmember Campillo? Councilmember Moreno? Councilmember Elo Rivera? And Council President LaCava.
Thank you, Clerk. Well, quorum is now, oh, you want to introduce?
Well, I just need you to say here.
Oh, here.
Assistant City Attorney Leslie Fitzgerald, also attending the meeting. Independent Budget Analyst Charles Modica. Council Affairs Advisor in the Mayor's Office, Coda Zeiser. And myself, your City Clerk, Deanna Fuentes. Thank you, Council President. Sorry.
All right, no, that was my bad. Quorum is now present. With that, Clerk, please introduce item S506.
Item S506 is a salary ordinance for fiscal year 2027. If you'd like to speak on this item, please be sure to submit your speaker slip to the front of the room in the clear box. If you are participating remotely, now's the time to raise your hand by pressing *9 or the raise your hand icon. Thank you, Council President.
All right. Well, staff, when you settle in, please introduce yourself for the record and then let us know how much time you need.
Good afternoon, Council President and Council members. I'm Abby Gerald, Deputy Director in the Human Resources Department. With me today is Director Julie Rasco, Deputy Director John Terwilliger, Eric Hansen, Senior Human Resources Officer. Also with us today are several members of the Salary Ordinance Committee, Coda Zeiser from the Mayor's Office, Rolando Charvel, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Melendez from the Fire Rescue Department, Tom Brady from the City Attorney's Office, Lisa Burns from the IBA's Office, Quinell Ellen from the Risk Management Department, Christia Davis from the Personnel Department, and Chris Purcell from the Finance Department. Our presentation is about 8 minutes. We're here today to present the fiscal year 2027 salary ordinance. Before we begin our presentation, we wanted to note that there were some clarifications made to the staff report, salary ordinance attachment to an exhibit C, F, G, and H to reflect working title updates, which we'll walk through during the presentation, and copies have been provided to you. I will now turn it over to Eric, who will walk through the presentation.
All right, the salary ordinance is an annual item that establishes the compensation schedules for all employees and officers of the city per the city charter. The charter mandates that the first reading of the salary ordinance must be presented to City Council by April 15th each year. This year's presentation is broken down into 5 sections. Those are salary and wage adjustments, recommended updates, civil service recommendations, minimum wage compliance, and acknowledgments. For salary and wage adjustments, the city is currently negotiating with all 6 recognized employee organizations, also known as REOs, and therefore there are currently no wage increases to report for employees represented by the REOs. We will be returning to City Council with amendments to the FY 2027 salary ordinance to reflect any negotiated changes to wages and benefits. When it comes to wage adjustments for unrepresented employees, there are no proposed increases for unrepresented employees as contract negotiations are ongoing. We will also return to City Council once the negotiations have concluded with any recommended adjustments. Next, we'll turn to recommended updates. First is position titles, and the following are recommended updates to titles. In order to align the Fire Rescue Department's rank structure with the National Incident Management System, which is followed by nearly all fire departments in the country, the title changes will be as follows. Assistant Fire Chief classification in the Executive 4 category in Exhibit C will change to Deputy Fire Chief, and the title of the Deputy Fire Chief classification in the Managerial C category in Exhibit C will change to Assistant Fire Chief. Next is working titles. The following are the recommended updates to working titles. First is the Assistant City Manager, a position exempted by the City Charter, which has been operationalized with the working title of Assistant Chief Operating Officer, which it is proposed to be updated to Chief of Staff. The Assistant to the City Manager, a position also exempted by the City Charter, has been operationalized with the working title of Deputy Chief Operating Officer, which is proposed to be updated to Chief Officer. The Business Center Manager, which has a working title of Assistant Deputy Chief Operating Officer, is proposed to be updated to Deputy Chief of Staff. And finally, the Assistant to the City Manager, which has a working title of Assistant to the Chief Operating Officer, is recommended to be eliminated. Next, we have recommended movements between salary ranges. As requested by the City Clerk, it is recommended to move the Assistant City Clerk classification from Managerial C to Miscellaneous A. This will result in the Assistant City Clerk classification having the same salary range as other Assistant Director positions in independent city departments. In order to align with the overall citywide position hierarchy of the unclassified service, it is recommended to move the retitled Assistant Fire Chief along with the Assistant Police Chief to the Executive 3 category. Now I'll cover recommended updates to Exhibits F for auto allowance, G for management administrative leave, and H for management executive life insurance. The following are only working title updates and do not change the current benefits received by these positions. For Exhibit F, auto allowance, the recommendation is to update the Assistant to the City Manager working title, which is currently Deputy Chief Operating Officer, to be Chief Officer, and to add Business Center Manager with the working title of Deputy Chief of Staff. For Exhibit G, Management Administrative Leave, the recommendation is also to update the Assistant to the City Manager working title, which is currently Deputy Chief Operating Officer, to be Chief Officer, and to add the Business Center Manager with the working title of Deputy Chief of Staff. For Exhibit H, the working title is being updated for existing Assistant City Manager to Chief of Staff, and the working title update for the existing Assistant to the City Manager, which is Chief Officer. For Civil Service Commission recommendations, there are 3 groups of recommendations. First are new or reestablished classifications. There are 7 new or reestablished classifications recommended by the Civil Service Commission through the annual salary review process. 4 are represented by MEA and 3 by Local 145. Second are title changes. There are 4 title changes recommended by the Civil Service Commission through the annual salary review process. Those include Legal Secretary 1 and 2, which are recommended to be changed to Legal Administrative Assistants 1 and 2. Senior Legal Secretary, which will be changed to Senior Legal Administrative Assistant. And Principal Legal Secretary, which will be changed to Principal Legal Administrative Assistant. Third are the deletions. There are 16 classifications recommended by the Civil Service Commission for deletion. 9 of these are MEA represented, 5 are Local 127 represented, and 2 are unrepresented. Next is the minimum wage compliance. The California minimum wage increased to $16.90 per hour on January 1 of 2026. The salary ordinance codifies that also on January 1, 2026, the City of San Diego minimum wage increased to $17.75 per hour. According to the salary tables in the exhibits to the salary ordinance, all city employees will be paid no less than the local minimum wage of $17.75 per hour. Finally, we have acknowledgements. While HR is the lead for the salary ordinance presentation, it is a team effort. HR would like to acknowledge and thank the following for their input and help: the City Attorney's Office, personnel, the IBA's office, Department of Finance, Risk Management, and the Department of Information Technology. This concludes our presentation, and we are happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Clerk, let's proceed with public testimony on S506.
Thank you. Item S506, we have one speaker here in council chambers and others in the virtual queue. Al Del Mastro, if you can please come forward. Yes, you'll have 2 minutes. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Al Del Mastro, and you know, the reason why I opposed this salary is because how misleading it was on Prop L that you guys all got such large raises over. And the deal is that good leaders lead by example. So if you want to take a salary cut, push it on the public to have a salary cut, like I'm a small mom and pop landlord, and the restrictions you put on me over and over again. The idea that this new thing that's misleading that's being put on by Sean Ela Rivera, this thing about the empty house law. I looked it up again yesterday, and after I spoke to looked it up. I'm not exempt to this because I live in a 5-plex. So if my wife dies and I can't complete an apartment in 6 months, I'm going to get a $10,000 fine. Or if I get cancer, I'm going to get a $10,000 fine. Who thinks that's a good? Who doesn't think this is the ugliest law since Jim Crow? And it's really hard that you guys would approve this against seniors in the community.
Can you focus on the salary ordinance and not on
It is on that, sir. It's just the misleading part. That's how I'm putting it. Okay. Just as misleading as this salary ordinance was put in is how misleading this is being put in. You know, who would do that to a senior? 90% of all mom and pops are between the ages of 55 and 80 years old. Do you think you should do that to a senior, Joe? Do you think you should give them a fine if they can't get their home up in time because of their grieving, or they have cancer, or they have an illness? And not in the only exemption for illness is that if you're in a long-term care facility. That's it. I live in or exemption if you live in a property that's less than 4 units. That's it. There is no other exemption for me. Thank you.
I started the 5-minute timer here in council chambers going to those participating remotely. Currently have 3 speakers in the queue. Blair Beekman, if you can please unmute.
Hi, thank you for this item. Thank you for how you're talking about it. I just wanted to quickly offer that at public comment yesterday, a person, asked the question if city council persons and the mayor can consider taking a cut in salary. I thought it was a nice thing to offer. I think it's an item we still have to be considering as you're deliberating these issues that have many right now for this item. I hope we really can be considering the future of whatever type of salary cut council can make, and definitely the mayor. It's definitely a goodwill gesture. It is working in the right direction, and I think it'll give yourselves a good sense of how to better address issues. It's sacrificing, and I think you'll respect it, and good things will arise from it. I hope you can really be considering. I think it's an important item to consider for our future, and it certainly gives good faith to the community that you're trying to look for answers to. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is the original. If you can please unmute.
With the failures of the city, it's pretty ridiculous that we continually talk about giving raises, and with the exorbitant amounts of money that you guys make and the mayor makes, I mean, it's crazy because there's all this other pay and kickbacks that come in, and it's like, you guys shouldn't be making more than Congress. That's freaking ridiculous. And you guys are going to always continually give people raises instead of making sure that you guys are providing everything, failing miserably. And it's like, when you sit here and you're like reclassifying different positions, that's super suspicious, because is that a way it's capped at something and they couldn't make any more, than you put them into a new position and they can start making more and more money? I mean, just the things that you guys do are fishy, and you should be willing to take a pay cut. I mean, you guys are the ones that increase the cost of living every time that you have a meeting, and you want to sit here and act like you're going to go after others who do it. You're the ones who do it, and the people come to you and like thank you for it. It's really sad, because it's like, you know, looking at how much money you guys make and like the normal person just trying to pay rent, it's pretty crazy. And I don't know how you guys can sit up there and not see what's going on, and that's very kind of, you know, just a slap in the face and gaslighting of the people to act like you really care when you guys are just always giving raises and you're failing. I mean, no other business would be like, yeah, we're going to give you a raise even though you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. It only happens in government. And it's crazy because the government gets bigger and bigger, but everything gets worse and worse. And it's just more control and more like, you know, meddling into people's lives. So like, when you guys actually start providing what needs to be provided, and you quit engaging in fraud, waste, and abuse with our money, then maybe raises can be talked about. But until then, you guys need to be thinking about how you're going to cut your salaries.
Our final speaker, 8700, if you can please unmute.
Thank you, City Clerk Fuentes. Joy Sunyata. Okay, on the PowerPoint with the MOU negotiations and the unrepresented group, we don't know what the outcome will be. So will these figures, which will probably go up, affect the FY28 budget? I know there's some sort of it goes ahead a year or two, so I need clarity on that if possible. I don't know if there's another hearing on the salary ordinance. I tried to look up the IBA budget dates, and I couldn't find them either on the IBA website, or I lost them in my PD. Fire department adjustments, again, on the PowerPoint, I couldn't get what was happening there. It seemed like taken away and been given. So I don't know what to do with that. Do changes involve salary increases? Of course they do. And what is the total expenditure? When are we going to know if these get approved, how much is going to have to come out of the citizens' pockets, out of all our pockets? So please clarify that for us. And then as far as all of you, council and so forth, the mayor getting pay increases, we really need to talk about that and be fair for everybody. So thank you for this. I'll leave it up to you to decide where to go with it. Love to all.
Thank you. That does conclude public comment on this item.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. And with that, we'll turn it over to the council for questions, comments, and entertain a motion. I'm going to go first. Not seeing anybody else, even though my staff said go last. Thank you for the good work. As council president, I think I feel compelled. This is a big thing. We know at the date that this has to be delivered, so the number of changes that happened, including today, really makes it tough for council to go to deliberations. I think there was a lot of transparency in that, even though material was being delivered late. And I think, or their staff going forward, but I kind of feel we need the time to digest what you all have been spending days, weeks, perhaps months. To the working title last year when we approved the salary ordinance, there's some changes to the working titles this year. Help us understand the whole purpose of doing this classification to ABC instead of saying it's XYZ in parentheses, working title ABC. What's the logic in that?
So several of the positions that are identified expressly in the salary ordinance are also identified expressly in the charter. And because they're identified in the charter, they have to have that position, and working titles can be the way that you can explain the operational effectiveness of that position. So a deputy chief of staff, instead of saying assistant to the city manager, that's more in line with the current practice.
Okay. I think the other thing that came up that I think we're all thinking about right now, excluding the minimum wage, because that obviously will pay some individuals more per hour the minimum wage. Does the changes indicated on here have any net impact on our budget?
No, there is no change. That's why we're noting that upon conclusion of negotiations, we would come back. We would do an amendment to the salary ordinance as we have done in past years that would affect the budget changes at that time.
Okay, just to clarify, except for the minimum wage and except for whatever may happen with the REOs and the 6 contracts, that any of the title changes, any of the reclassifications, any of the side benefits that are referenced, there is no cost with the action being called for today.
Correct. This is merely title changes, no change in benefits or wages or salaries for any employees at this time.
Okay, I wanted to get that on the record because I know people will be concerned about that. And then I see our chief is in the back, your flip-flopping assistant and deputy chief Logan. There's only one chief in the room, so. But you've talked about it with your team in terms of flip-flopping deputy and assistant positions to be, as I understand, consistent with the national model?
That's correct. If you look at all the large cities in California, they're all reversed. We've been wrong for a few decades, and I'm riding the ship.
Okay.
No salary increases.
No salary, okay. I know, new shirts and new nameplates.
New nameplates and email signatures.
There we go.
Very minimal cost.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I assume that was the case. I just wanted to double check. With that, I'm going to move the staff recommendation and then turn it over to my colleagues for their comments. Questions? We'll go to Councilmember Whitburn.
Thank you, Council President. You actually asked and got the answer to the question that I had, so I am happy to second the motion.
All right, we have a motion by myself and a second by Councilmember Whitburn to move the staff recommendation. We'll go to Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Thank you, Council President. Thanks for the presentation here. Appreciate the questions that you asked, Council President, and the points you made. Obviously, in a budget environment like the one that we're in, where we're going to make some very difficult decisions, where we have working families across the city struggling to make ends meet, I think it's important that the way we tighten our belt matters, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I want to make sure that we're doing that in a way that ensures our actions match our rhetoric. So I think it's a fair question about our salaries, and I think there's some misunderstanding about what our powers are as it relates to that. The raises, the salary set in the salary ordinance in front of us for the council members and the mayor are set as a result of Measure L, which was adopted by voters in 2018, correct? And this is, yes, that is correct. And our understanding is that council members cannot reject the ordinance, per the action that was taken by the voters, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
The charter doesn't provide any means for you to accept the salary. So in order to do that, you would have to have a charter amendment that permitted that.
Understood. Thank you. And it's, again, very, very fair question. And in a position of leadership where I've pulled back my own to be let go or need to receive less, and I wasn't okay with that. The voters took an action in 2018, and I just want to make sure that it's clear. That is how the table was set in the way that it is. And I want to simultaneously say that everyone who works in this city that work of all people should be honored. And I know what this conversation over the next few months is going to look like as it relates to the budget, and that the folks who are most likely to be impacted by decisions that are made are residents of the city and lower paid workers in the city, to be quite honest. And with that, while I understand a lot of this is cleanup, I see stuff in here that lists, and I'm not okay with the amount. No one's more open to, on the dais, changes than I am, but this showing up right now, I'm not good with that. And what I saw, what was presented to us were executive and management positions that were eligible for $475 monthly automobile allowance and 80 hours of management and administrative leave. Whether that is cleanup, I am not okay. The additional explanation and materials and explain those actions. So, Council President, with all due respect, I will.
All right, understood. Thank you for your comments and observations. We'll go next to Council President Pro Tem Lee.
Thank you, Council President. Can I just start by asking, these materials were different 24 hours ago.
Yes, there was clarification for the specific position of assistant to city manager. There are 2 positions currently in the salary table that have the title of assistant city manager, but different working titles. So to address the cleanup and clarification that was causing for confusion, we made sure that the assistant to city manager has a working title of chief officer, and that the business center manager has the working title of the deputy chief of staff, so that there was no ongoing confusion about the 2 different responsible positions. The pay is not changing, it's merely a title change cleanup.
I think it's part of my struggle of understanding. The pay's not changing, you're saying the benefits aren't changing, but the title has to change. And yesterday the title change is different than the title change today, which I can't help but now feel like it's just an arbitrary decision as what we think the title is or needs to be, because yesterday it was assistant to the city manager and today it's business center manager, which I'll ask the IBA perhaps, but neither position currently exists in our budget this year.
If you look at job ID numbers, I don't see either 2112, which is the business center manager, or I believe it was 2127, which was the assistant to the COO, either as a budgeted position or an unbudgeted position that's currently filled.
I guess just to continue along those lines, are all the, well, yeah, you might have answered some of that. Are there other positions that are within these working title changes that are currently in this current fiscal year?
So, hundreds, if not thousands, of positions laid out in the salary ordinance, not all of which may necessarily correspond to a position that is currently in the budget. There are also covered in the salary ordinance where the number of positions filled and the number of positions that are budgeted are different. Specific position, I can try to answer that. I'm sure that HR could as well, but it's where you want to look, in as much as there's 13,000 city employees and many, many, many classifications.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I think I'll just share that my frustration as of right now is that in an era where I think we're dealing with significant challenges from a transparency standpoint, that one, the changes, I understand that they needed to be made and clarifications had to happen, but it's near impossible to explain that to folks when we on an item and the details of it now are different between the briefing we had not that long ago and the item actually being presented at council. I mean, that's a challenge, especially when there's going to be fair questions, I think, from the outside. I think when someone looks at the documents here, part of what folks from the is that we are adding additional benefits to employees because that's what the wording seems to suggest. We're adding additional auto allowances for different classifications. I think I understand from what has been shared that that is not a change. It's because it's a change to try to reflect specific positions that I believe are currently not filled, nor, my understanding, not in the currently proposed budget that comes out tomorrow, but may the benefits that are being required for it. And to the public, that just looks like we're just reported in the last day or so, asking all of our classified employees to take a significant number of them have agreed to take. I mean, it's very challenged to understand what's being changed. Explain that to the public. For me, this also ties back into the fact that I know that there are positions highlighted in the budget last year. They remain unbudgeted at this time in this year, and there has been no change made from the mayor to account for that. Struggle to answer throughout this year. Perhaps it's a surprise that we've not talked more about it. Passed the budget last year that the administration decided that was not necessary to fully enact it, and it turns out that perhaps they have the authority to do so. Those will be added back in for next year. We're going to be running roundabout on that conversation all over again, and that failure to have in today's salary ordinance proposal, especially because of how confusing it's been presented with the changes. So with that, I be supporting the motion today.
All right, thank you, Council President Pro Tem Lee.
And I honestly feel just unclear about what we're doing today because materials were swapped out about half an hour before. In this new updated staff report, so I don't know what page to tell people to come to, but the title says Movement of Unclassified Classification Salary Ranges and Changes in Unclassified Classification Titles, Auto Allowance, and Management Administrative Leave. It's that page I'm looking at, and there's a bunch of bullet points. 3, talk about moving the classification of the Assistant City Clerk. It says other assistant director positions in independent city departments, paid on par with the similar employees in other city departments. The second one about the classification, there's an explanation here of why we're changing their title as a council rep. But I have a chief of staff, I have a deputy chief of staff. Staff their business cards based on their titles. So why are we changing all of these?
Those have to be brought into alignment with the current titles. Is the position as identified by the charter.
All right, I think that I'm not gonna be able to support this today. So my worry is that there might not be enough votes to pass this. I don't know. I believe that that would set off some problems in the timing of our budget. If this were not to pass today, what would be the result?
Today, you don't have to pass the ordinance in its current form. You can make changes.
So then could we take out the things that changed this morning and bring those back at a further date when the MOUs get done with our employees? So there's plenty of time for these title changes. When the MOUs get done with our employees, so there's plenty of time for these title changes. I'm not saying we, I'll speak for myself, that I would like to not vote on the title changes. That is just take out these few that were on.
The slide that she's referring to make sure that
I'm so sorry, there's no page numbers on here. Yes, these are the ones that changed, right?
So the first one did not change from earlier. The one that did change was the 2112 and 2127. 2153 was already listed there as chief officer as well. So 2112, which is the assistant city manager with the working title of chief of staff, was not new. We had already presented that in our presentation. And then the assistant to the city manager, 2153, was also not new. The new.
Okay, yet all of those didn't have any explanation of why we're doing this in the staff report.
I want to hear from Councilmember Foster, but possibly amend the motion. Figure out how to refer to that particular slide. Foster.
Yes, thank you, Council President. And I too I'm hesitant to position. And if you can, and maybe what would understand a better understanding of the charter. Indicated that the item had to be introduced and approved along. I'm not understanding. Now we are here today saying that this absolutely has to be passed, and yet we are receiving changes that differ from, I'm going to assume, all of the briefings that we received, and wanting to try and make heads or tails of this as we are sitting at the dais. And irresponsible of us in not understanding the true impacts. We need to try and understand. Pull something, make it part of the backup, the record, something.
Sure, I think I could help a little bit here. Charter Section 290 controls the salary ordinance. And it says no later than April 15th of each year, the council shall introduce a salary ordinance. And that's what we're doing today, right? And that the way the process works is you introduce the salary ordinance the way you want to. If there are things in here that the mayor recommended that you don't like, you can remove it and introduce it as you like. And the process contemplates that then the salary ordinance that the council introduces, okay, and the mayor then determines whether or not he's going to accept those changes. The council for the second reading to pass. Either override the veto or accept the mayor's changes. That's the process in 290.
That makes me more concerned as this mayor's office. We did not generate said document. Alrighty, I'm not going to be voting. I'm going to be voting no. Again, for me, and just for us to receive this today, I'm just not prepared based on all of the conversation we're dealing with, what we are dealing with. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Foster. And just to clarify, we're interpreting the word introduce as actually pass. Thank you for clarifying that. I'll have some other feedback, but go first.
Going to make right there is introduces doesn't mean to actually introduce. So the next line that you didn't read, Mr. Brady, is that the mayor is the one who proposes it. So that's something you just said. Thank you, Council President.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Campillo. I think